Jordan Reeves was 38 years old, a structural engineer who spent his career calculating exactly how much weight a foundation could bear before it failed. He thought he understood pressure. He thought he understood loyalty. He had been a faithful husband for 6 years. The man who fixed things without being asked, remembered everything without being thanked, and loved a woman who had quietly stopped deserving it long before he knew. Then, one Thursday evening, he came home early with flowers and a bottle of wine, opened his own front door, and had his life dismantled in under 10 minutes. His wife stood in the living room, certain and immovable, accusing him of getting her younger sister pregnant. Her sister sat on the couch and let the lie breathe. Desiree told him to get out. His things would be in trash bags on the porch by morning, and if he wasn't gone in 10 minutes, she would call the police and let the neighbors watch. Jordan picked up his laptop bag. He picked up his keys, and on his way out through the kitchen, he saw something on that counter that changed everything. A single text message that told him exactly what this really was. He didn't say a word. He walked out his own back door into the dark. 6 months later, Desiree called him 84 times in 72 hours. He didn't answer once, and what he had been doing in that silence would cost her everything. Before we jump into the story, comment where in the world you are watching from and subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you need to hear. The blueprints were spread across the kitchen counter the way Jordan liked them, flat, clean, held at the corners by a coffee mug, a stapler, a folded dish towel, and his left elbow. The house was dark except for the work lamp he'd clipped to the cabinet above him, throwing a tight circle of yellow light over the pages. Outside, the sky was the deep blue-black of 5 in the morning, the kind of dark that felt private. Like the world hadn't started yet. His coffee had gone cold. He knew without touching it. He always let the first cup go cold. It was a habit Desiree teased him about in the early years. Jordan, you make a full pot, and then you just forget about it. But the teasing had stopped somewhere around year 4, around the same time she stopped asking what he was working on. He picked up the mug anyway, took a sip, set it back down. The blueprints were for a loading dock expansion at a distribution center 2 counties over. Routine work, technically speaking, but Jordan did not do routine. He did thorough. There was a section on the east wall where the soil composition report made him uneasy. Nothing the numbers flagged officially, but something in how the figures sat together. A feeling he'd learned to trust over 15 years of looking at structures, finding the places where they wanted to fail before they actually did. He circled it in pencil, light, precise. Then he made a note in the margin, in his small, even handwriting, revisit load distribution, east anchor points. The house around him was still and immaculate, not in the staged magazine spread way, in the real way, the way a place looks when someone actually takes care of it. The cabinet hinge he'd replaced last month hung perfectly level. The grout in the kitchen tile was clean because he resealed it every spring without putting it on a list or waiting for someone to notice it needed doing. The drawer that used to stick, the one with the takeout menus and the batteries and the inexplicable collection of rubber bands, glided open smooth and easy now because he'd planned the edge down on a Saturday in October while Desiree was at brunch. She never mentioned it. He didn't need her to. 6 years of marriage had taught Jordan that love, real love, was mostly just sustained attention. It was remembering that she liked the heat in the car turned up before she got in, not after. It was knowing her dental cleaning was the second Thursday of every other month and texting her a reminder the night before. It was fixing the drawer because the drawer was broken, not because he expected a thank you. He had always believed this. He still believed it. He just noticed, lately, that the attention mostly moved in one direction. He heard her before he saw her. The particular rhythm of Desiree's heels on the upper hallway, the sound he'd woken up to for 6 years and could identify in his sleep. She came downstairs in a charcoal blazer and dark slacks, her natural hair pinned up in the way that meant she had an early meeting. Her phone was already in her hand. Her eyes were on the screen. She was beautiful. She had always been beautiful. Jordan watched her cross the kitchen toward the coffee maker with the same quiet attention he gave everything, and felt, not for the first time, like a piece of furniture she was navigating around. "Morning," he said. She pulled a travel mug from the cabinet he'd fixed. "You want eggs? I've got time." She was already pouring. "I'll grab something. There's that place on Clement that opened last month. You said you wanted to—" Jordan, not unkind, not cruel, just finished. "I have a 7:30. She snapped the lid onto the travel mug. She picked up her bag from the counter where she'd left it the night before, keys already in hand. She checked her phone one more time. And then she was moving toward the front door, and Jordan was still at the counter with cold coffee and a circled section of blueprints, and the door opened and closed with the quiet, final click of a well-maintained latch. No kiss. He noted this the way he noted the soil report. Quietly, without drama. Filed it in the place where he had been filing things for the better part of a year. A drawer inside himself that was getting full. He thought about Priya. She'd been at the house 3 times in the last 2 months, which was more than the entire previous year combined. Each time she arrived carrying the look of someone who was afraid of something specific. Not anxious in the general way Priya sometimes was, but braced, the way a person looks when they are waiting for a thing they know is coming. He had asked Desiree about it twice. Once in bed on a Sunday. Once over dinner on a Wednesday. Both times, she'd changed the subject so smoothly he almost hadn't noticed. Almost. Jordan rolled the blueprints, slid them into his work bag, and rinsed his mug in the sink. He turned off the work lamp. He picked up his keys from the hook by the back hallway, the hook he'd installed himself, at exactly the height that made sense. He walked to the front door, unlocked it from the inside, stepped out into the cold morning air, and locked it behind him with the quiet, practiced click of a man who had built a life he intended to keep. The bonus came through at 2:47 in the afternoon. Jordan was at his desk reviewing the revised load calculations for the distribution center when the email landed. A single paragraph from the firm's managing partner, direct and unhurried, the way good news tends to arrive when it isn't performing. The number was bigger than he expected. Not life-changing, but real. The kind of real that made a person want to mark the day somehow. He shut his laptop at 3. Left the office while the afternoon light was still gold. He stopped at the flower shop on Briar First, the one run by the older Vietnamese woman who always wrapped the stems in brown paper and brown twine, never plastic. He chose Desiree's favorites, deep burgundy dahlias with a few sprigs of eucalyptus tucked in at the edges. The smell of them filled his car on the drive over to the wine shop, something green and soft and alive. The wine shop was 2 blocks from their house. He knew the bottle without looking it up. A burgundy she'd ordered twice at dinner, once on their 4th anniversary, and once at her company's holiday party when she didn't know he was watching her face when she tasted it. He'd remembered the label. He always remembered. He drove the 2 blocks home feeling something he hadn't felt in a while. Hopeful. Not dramatically. Just quietly hopeful. The way a man feels when he decides to try again. He pulled into the driveway, gathered the flowers and the wine, and pushed through the front door. The house hit him wrong before he understood why. Priya was on the couch. That was the first thing. She was hunched forward with her arms crossed over her midsection, her face red and swollen in the way that meant she had been crying hard, and for a long time. Her mascara had tracked down both cheeks and dried there. She did not look up when the door opened. Desiree was standing. She was in the center of the living room with her arms at her sides and her chin level, and the look on her face was not the look of a woman who had been crying. It was the look of a woman who had finished crying and moved on to something harder, something she had been building toward. Jordan opened his mouth. "Priya is pregnant." He stopped. Desiree's voice did not shake. It was clear and deliberate, each word its own separate weight. "She told me today, and she told me who." Jordan looked at his wife. Then he looked at Priya. Priya stared at the floor. "Desiree, don't." She took one step forward. "Don't do the voice. I know the voice. I need you to not do the voice right now." "I don't know what you think." "I know, Jordan." And then it came. Not screaming. Worse than screaming. Controlled and precise, the way Desiree got when she had already made her decision and was simply informing you of it. She had a timeline. A Tuesday in September, 3 months back, when Priya had come by, while Desiree was working late, and Jordan had been home, which was true. He had been home. He had let Priya in because she seemed upset, and they had sat in the kitchen. That was all. That had been all. But Desiree had the date, and she had the hour, and she had the way Priya looked when she came home that evening, and she had assembled all of it into something that fit together just well enough to hold weight. "She didn't want to tell me," Desiree said. "She is protecting you, even now. That's what makes me sick." Jordan set the flowers on the table by the door. Slowly. The bottle, too. He looked at Priya. "Priya." His voice was quiet, even. "Look at me." Priya's shoulders pulled inward. "Look at me, and tell me the truth." Her face crumpled. A sound came out of her. Not words, just something broken and shapeless. And the tears started again, and she pressed both hands over her eyes, and she did not look up. She did not say yes. She did not say no. Desiree moved between them. "You need to leave this house." "Desiree, I have not. I want you out." Her voice went up one register, just one, and it carried everything she was feeling in a single sharp edge. "Your things will be in bags on the porch by morning. If you are not out of here in 10 minutes, I will call the police. I will do it. Do not test me on that." She glanced toward the window, toward the neighbors. "Let that land." Jordan looked at his wife for a long moment. The woman he had loved for 6 years. The woman he had fixed every hinge and resealed every tile for. He waited for something to shift in her face. Nothing shifted. He reached down and picked up his laptop bag. He picked up his keys from the table, beside the flowers, beside the wine, and he walked toward the kitchen and the back door without another word. He passed the counter. Priya's phone was lying face up near the edge, and the screen lit as he walked by. A text preview. A contact saved as nothing but a single letter. B. The words were brief. "Did you tell her it was him? Does she believe it?" Jordan read it in 3 seconds. He did not stop walking. He did not turn around. He pushed open the back door, stepped out into the cold evening air, and pulled it shut behind him with the same quiet, practiced click. He sat in the car for 6 minutes. He knew it was 6 because he watched the clock on the dashboard tick from 6:41 to 6:47 without moving. The engine was off. The street was quiet. From where he was parked, he could see the warm yellow rectangle of the living room window, and once he saw Priya's silhouette pass behind the curtain, moving slowly, and then it was gone. The flowers were still on the table inside. He thought about that for a moment. Then he started the car. Victor's apartment was 20 minutes north, on the 4th floor of a building that always smelled like someone's dinner. Jordan buzzed from the street. Victor answered in under 10 seconds. He always answered fast, always had. Even at midnight, even on a Wednesday, because that was just the shape of the man. "It's me," Jordan said. A pause. Then, "Coming down." He didn't ask why. He didn't ask what happened. He just came down. And when the lobby door opened and he looked at Jordan's face, he stepped aside without a word and let him through. They rode the elevator up in silence. Inside, Victor's apartment was warm, and a little cluttered in the comfortable way of a man who lived fully in his space. Real estate prospectuses spread across the coffee table, a half-eaten bowl of rice on the counter, a game paused on the television. Victor turned the TV off. He went to the kitchen and came back with 2 glasses of water and set them both on the table. He sat across from Jordan and waited. Jordan told him everything. He told it the way he did most things, in order, without extra weight on any of it, letting the facts carry themselves. The flowers, the door opening, Priya on the couch, Desiree in the center of the room with her arms at her sides and her mind already made up. The timeline she had constructed, the 10-minute ultimatum, the laptop bag and the keys, and then the phone. When Jordan described the text message, the contact labeled B, the words, "Did you tell her it was him? Does she believe it?" Victor went very still. Then he stood up. He walked to the window and stood there with his back to Jordan, and Jordan could see the tension working through his shoulders, could see him press one hand flat against the glass. "Say that again," Victor said. Jordan said it again. Exactly. Word for word, because he had read it 3 times in 3 seconds, and it was burned in clean. Victor turned around. His jaw was tight. "Who is B?" "I don't know yet." "And she had that phone just sitting there, face up on the counter." "Yes." "Jordan." Victor's voice had a specific quality to it now, the one that meant he was working very hard to keep something down. "They planned this. Looks that way. Someone told her what to say. Someone coached her to walk into your house, and—" He stopped, shook his head. "That is not just a scared girl making a bad decision. That is a setup." "Yes," Jordan said simply. "It is." Victor waited for something more, for the anger to arrive, the heat, the collapse. That was what the moment seemed to call for. But Jordan just sat there on the couch, with his hands loose in his lap, his expression steady and low-lit and private, like a room where the lights had been turned down but not off. That, Victor would later say, was when he understood that Jordan was not broken. He was loading. "What do you need?" Victor asked. "A number. Family law attorney. Someone good." Victor was already reaching for his phone. "I know a guy who used a woman in Midtown. Said she was a surgeon. See if you can get her contact information." "Tonight?" "Tonight." Victor made 2 calls. By 9:30, Jordan had a name, Sandra Okafor, Okafor Family Law, and a consultation scheduled for 8 o'clock the following morning. One of the firm's senior associates answered the after-hours line and didn't sound put out by it at all, which Jordan took as a good sign. He did not call Desiree. He did not text. He did not pull up her contact and sit there with his thumb hovering over it. He did not open any of their shared accounts, or go on social media, or call her mother, or do any of the things a man in pieces might do. He borrowed a pillow and a blanket from Victor's hall closet. He took off his shoes and lay down on the couch, on top of the blanket rather than under it, staring up at the ceiling while Victor moved quietly in the other room, getting ready for bed. The ceiling had a small water stain near the light fixture. Jordan looked at it for a long time. He was not grieving. Not yet. That would come, he suspected. The grief was real, and it would find him. But right now, his mind was doing what it always did under pressure. It was looking at the structure, finding the load-bearing points, identifying what needed to be reinforced, and what had already failed. He was still working through it when the phone on the coffee table lit up. Desiree. He watched the screen glow, watched it pulse with the incoming call. Her name, her contact photo, her voice waiting on the other end. He did not reach for it. The screen went dark. He set it face down on the coffee table with one hand, carefully, like setting a tool aside after the job is done. The attorney's office was on the 11th floor of a glass building downtown, clean and spare, with a view of the street below, and 2 chairs positioned across from a wide oak desk. Jordan arrived at 7:52. He sat in the waiting area and did not look at his phone. Sandra Okafor's associate had given him the wrong name on the phone the night before. The attorney who came through the side door at 7:59 was a compact woman in her mid-40s with close-cropped natural hair and reading glasses pushed up on her forehead. Her nameplate read, Evelyn Park. "Mr. Reeves," she said, and shook his hand with the grip of someone who did not waste time establishing her. "Come in." She closed the door behind them. She sat. She opened a legal pad. She looked at him over the top of it and said, "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning, and don't leave anything out." So he did. He told it the same way he had told Victor the night before, in order, without drama, letting each fact sit on its own. The marriage, the 6 years, the way things had been lately, Priya's visits, her frightened energy, the twice he had asked Desiree about it and been redirected both times. He told her about the flowers and the wine and the front door opening onto chaos. He told her about the ultimatum and the trash bag threat and the laptop bag and the keys. Then he told her about the phone. Evelyn Park did not react visibly, which he respected. She wrote something down, pressed the cap of her pen against her lower lip for a moment, and then looked back up. "You saw this message clearly? You can reproduce the exact language? Word for word." She wrote it down as he said it. "Did you tell her it was him? Does she believe it?" She looked at it for a moment. Then she said, "You did not confront her. You did not turn around." "No." "Good." She said it flatly, like a confirmation rather than a compliment. "That is the single best thing you could have done, and most people don't do it." She set the pen down. "Here is what we are going to do, Mr. Reeves, and here is what we are not going to do. We are not going to file anything yet. Filing right now tells them you are moving, and the moment they know you are moving, they start moving too. Right now, they believe they have control of this situation. We are going to let them keep believing that." Jordan nodded. "You are going to document everything. Dates, times, events, anything relevant. Written log, kept somewhere only you can access. You are going to separate your finances today. New account, separate bank. Redirect your direct deposit before your next payroll date. You are going to do this quietly, without announcement, and without touching anything that is jointly held in a way that could be characterized as dissipation." She paused. "Can you do all of that?" "Yes." "Do you have any significant assets your wife may not be fully aware of?" Jordan looked at her steadily. "Yes," he said. "That's actually the next thing I need to tell you about." He opened the new account at a credit union 3 blocks from Evelyn Park's building, walking there directly from the elevator. It took 45 minutes. He redirected his direct deposit through his company's HR portal on his phone, while waiting for the account paperwork to process. By noon, the financial separation had begun. Quiet, clean, no announcement. He started the written log on a new document on his laptop that afternoon, sitting at a small table in a coffee shop 2 blocks from Victor's building. He typed the date at the top, the date of the accusation, of the eviction, of the text message, and then he wrote it all out in the plain, precise language of a man who worked with technical documentation for a living. No emotion, no interpretation. Just the facts, sequenced correctly, each one carrying its own weight. He was 2 pages in when Victor sat down across from him. "How'd it go?" "Good, attorney," Jordan said. "She knows what she's doing." Victor leaned back in the chair and folded his arms. "You eating?" "Not yet. I'll get you something." He flagged down the counter. Then he said, without preamble, "We need to talk about the LLC." They spread it out on the table after the food arrived. Not literally, just in words, but Jordan laid it out with the same precision he had used in the attorney's office. 4 properties. A 5th under contract, 30 days from closing. Combined equity approaching $340,000, calculated conservatively. The entity formed 3 years ago, filed in both their names, never commingled with any joint marital account. Desiree had come to one dinner where Victor talked about it. She had spent most of the meal answering emails. "She's going to say it's marital," Victor said. "She's going to try," Jordan said. "Evelyn says the formation date matters. It predates the marriage by a year." Victor nodded slowly. He was quiet for a moment, turning his fork over in his hand. Then he said, almost as a footnote, the way a man mentions something he has been sitting on, waiting for the right time. "I looked up that contact. The B from Priya's phone." Jordan looked up. "His name is Brendan Holt." Victor set his fork down. "He works at Desiree's company, marketing department. Has for about 14 months. The coffee shop continued around them. The hiss of the espresso machine, someone laughing near the door, the low current of other people's conversations. Jordan sat with the information for a moment, the way he sat with a structural calculation that didn't add up yet. Then Victor pulled out his phone, opened LinkedIn, and placed it flat on the table between them. The profile photo showed a man in his early 30s, sharp haircut, professional headshot, the kind of smile a person practices. The job title read, Account Manager, Caldwell Meridian Health Marketing Group. The same department, the same floor, 30 feet from Jordan's wife's office, for over a year. Jordan looked at the photo for a long moment. He did not pick the phone up. He just looked at it, his face completely still. "She knew who he was," he said quietly. He picked up his pen. He wrote Brendan Holt's full name, his title, his employer, and the 14-month timeline at the bottom of the open page in his log. Then he took a picture of Victor's phone screen and emailed it to Evelyn Park with 3 words in the subject line, "For the file." The call came on a Friday morning, 3 days after the meeting with Evelyn Park. Jordan was at his desk at the firm reviewing load tolerances on a parking structure project when his phone lit up on the corner of the desk. The number was one he recognized but hadn't expected. He looked at it for one full ring before he picked up. "Aunt Claudette?" "Jordan." Her voice was the same as it had always been, low, unhurried, carrying the particular authority of a woman who had never needed volume to be heard. "I know what happened. Meet me Tuesday." No preamble, no softening, no "how are you holding up" or "I'm so sorry about everything." Just the facts, delivered clean. "Where?" he said. She named a diner on the east side of town, a place called Lena's that had been there longer than either of them had been alive. She gave him the intersection. She told him noon. "I'll be there," he said. She hung up without another word, and Jordan set the phone down and returned to the load tolerances, because that was what the morning required, and because falling apart at his desk had never been something he was willing to do. Lena's smelled like coffee and bacon grease and something sweet from the pie case near the register. The booths were red vinyl, worn to a soft shine. A ceiling fan turned slowly overhead, even though it wasn't warm enough to need it. Claudette was already there when Jordan arrived, seated in the back booth with a cup of coffee in front of her and her coat folded on the bench beside her. She was 61, built like a woman who had carried a great deal over a long life and decided somewhere along the way to carry it upright. She watched him cross the diner toward her the way she watched most things, steadily, without performance. He slid into the booth across from her. A waitress appeared and filled his cup without being asked. He thanked her. Claudette looked at him for a moment. "You look tired," she said. "I'm fine." "I know you're fine. I said you look tired." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "I'm not going to ask you how you're doing, Jordan. I'm going to tell you what I know, and then I'm going to give you something. That's why I called." He nodded. He held his coffee and listened. She had figured it out in pieces, she said. Little things at first. The way Priya flinched when Brendan Holt's name came up in conversation, the way she avoided certain details about who the father was, and redirected anyone who pressed her. Claudette had been present at enough of the family's conversations over those weeks to start assembling a picture. She did not say she was suspicious. She said she was paying attention, which for Claudette amounted to the same thing. She had gone to Priya directly. No audience, no theater. Just the two of them at Priya's kitchen table, a Sunday afternoon, and Claudette asking her questions in the flat, unhurried way that made lying feel more exhausting than the truth. Priya had confessed in full. Brendan Holt. Over a year. A relationship Priya had believed was serious, had believed was building towards something real, right up until the moment she told him about the pregnancy and watched his face change. He had not panicked loudly. That was the part Claudette said with a particular distaste. He had not yelled, had not run. He had gotten very calm and very practical, which was somehow worse. He told Priya that they needed to think clearly. He told her that his career could not survive this, not with the other situation he was managing. He told her that there was a simpler way through. Just point it somewhere else, Claudette said, repeating his words as Priya had given them. He seems like the safe choice. She'll go with it. Priya had chosen Jordan because the calculation was clean. He was Desiree's husband. Desiree, once activated, needed no evidence, only her sister's word. Jordan was steady, quiet, not the type to explode, and Priya had convinced herself that surviving it was something a man like Jordan could simply do. She had not thought past that point. She had not let herself. Claudette told him all of this without softening any of it. She did not editorialize. She did not say she was scared, as though fear was an explanation rather than a condition. When she finished, she reached into her coat pocket and slid a folded piece of paper across the table. Jordan unfolded it. A printed screenshot, a text chain from Priya's phone, captured on a visit. The kind of thing a sharp woman does quietly when she understands what she is looking at. The exchange was dated the week before the confrontation in the living room. Brendan. Just point it somewhere else. He seems like the safe choice. She'll go with it. Priya. You sure? Brendan. She already doesn't trust him. She just needs a reason. Jordan read it once. He read it the way he read structural reports. Carefully, completely, without letting his face show what the numbers were doing to him. Then he folded it along its original crease and placed it in the inside pocket of his jacket. He picked up the check before Claudette could reach for it. He left cash on the table and slid out of the booth. As he stood, Claudette reached across and closed her hand around his forearm. Her grip was firm, not gentle. That girl had a good man and a good life, she said, and she let her sister make her stupid. Her eyes held his without flinching. Don't you let them make you small. Jordan looked at her for a moment. Then he nodded once. He walked to the door and pushed it open, and the cold air met him on the other side. The knock came on a Saturday afternoon, 2 weeks after Lena's diner. Jordan was at his kitchen table with a set of property inspection reports spread in front of him, a pen in his hand, reading glasses he had recently admitted he needed perched on the end of his nose. The apartment was small but clean. He had chosen it for the light and the quiet, and both had delivered. He was not expecting anyone. He set the pen down, pulled off his glasses, and crossed the room. When he opened the door, he stood still for 1 full second before he said anything. Priya looked like she had driven a long way in a car with bad heat. She was 7 months along, and the pregnancy had changed her face in the way pregnancy sometimes does. Softened some things, sharpened others. Her eyes were red at the edges. She was wearing a coat that no longer closed across the middle, and she had her arms wrapped around herself anyway, holding on to what she could. She looked up at him and her mouth opened and then closed. Jordan, she finally said. Her voice was thin. I need to talk to you. He looked at her for a moment. He thought about what Claudette had told him. He thought about Brendan's text message folded inside his jacket pocket, now in an envelope inside his attorney's office. He thought about the 11 weeks between that Thursday night and this Saturday afternoon, and everything he had built inside that silence. He stepped back from the door. "Come in," he said. He gave her water, and she sat on his couch, both hands wrapped around the glass, and she talked. She talked for almost 20 minutes straight. She did not try to shape it. She did not manage it. The story came out with the uneven rhythm of something that had been rehearsed so many times it had finally outgrown the rehearsal. Brendan's calm when she told him about the pregnancy, the way he had laid it out like a problem to be solved, the specific way he had said, "There's a simpler way through this," like he was optimizing a workflow rather than redirecting blame onto an innocent man. Her fear, her need to believe he was worth protecting. The calculation she had made, and she used the word calculation, which Jordan noticed, that Jordan was steady enough, stable enough, that he could absorb it, that Desiree's anger would eventually burn through, that the truth would surface on its own before anything became permanent. She had not thought past the moment. She had not asked herself what permanent actually looked like. Jordan sat in the chair across from her and listened. He did not interrupt once. He did not shift his weight or look away or give her anything to react to. He simply listened, with the same careful attention he brought to everything that mattered, and let her finish. When she did, the apartment was very quiet. "I'm sorry," she said. The words came out small. "Jordan, I am so sorry. I know that doesn't—" She stopped, started again. "I know it doesn't fix anything." Jordan set his hands on his knees and looked at her steadily. "I know," he said. She blinked. "What?" "I know what happened." His voice was even. Not cold, not warm, just level, like a floor that had been checked for slope. "I saw the text message the night I left. Priya's phone was on the counter, face up. A preview from B. I read it in about 3 seconds." He paused. "I've known since that night." The color left her face. "Claudette gave me the full exchange," he continued. "She printed the screenshot herself. My attorney has a copy. She also has the documentation I started building the next morning. The timeline, the financials, everything." He let that settle. "I have been 3 steps ahead of this conversation since October." Priya stared at him. The glass in her hands had gone still. "You knew." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I knew." Something cracked open in her expression then. Not grief, exactly, but the specific collapse of a person who walked into a room expecting to hold all the cards and discovered the other player had been holding them the entire time. The composure she had carried through the confession, carefully assembled, he could see that now, came apart all at once. She pressed one hand over her mouth, and the tears came in a way that had nothing to do with strategy. Jordan let her cry. He did not move toward her. He did not look away. When it slowed, he spoke. "I need one thing from you," he said. "A written statement. Full account of what happened. Brendan's instructions, your decision, all of it. Signed and notarized." He kept his voice calm and precise. "Not for public use. Not to put your name anywhere it doesn't need to be. My attorney holds it. If Desiree contests the asset division or makes any further claims against my character, it becomes relevant. That's the only condition under which it moves." Priya wiped her face with the back of her hand. "And if she doesn't contest? Then it stays in a safe, and neither of us ever has to think about it again." She looked at him for a long moment. "Will this ruin me?" Jordan held her gaze. "Priya," he said quietly, "you made that choice in the conversation you had with Brendan before you ever said my name. I'm not here to ruin you. I'm here to protect myself from what you already did." She nodded slowly. A single nod, like something being put down. "Okay," she said. "I'll sign." "The notary is downstairs in the lobby," Jordan said. "My attorney arranged it this morning." Priya signed at 6:47 in the evening, in the lobby of Jordan's building, under a light fixture that buzzed faintly overhead. The notary was a compact woman in her 50s who acknowledged nothing except the document, the identification, and the signatures required. Priya's hand trembled once and then steadied. The document was in Evelyn Park's office safe before midnight. Jordan sat alone at his kitchen table after Priya left. The inspection reports still spread in front of him where he had left them hours ago. The city outside his window was moving through its ordinary Saturday night. Lights, traffic, the distant sound of something he couldn't name. He did not feel victorious. He did not feel relieved. He felt, for the first time since he had walked out of his own back door on a Thursday evening carrying nothing but his laptop bag and his keys and 3 seconds of someone else's text message, he felt like a man standing on solid ground. The papers arrived on a Wednesday. Evelyn Park's office sent them by process server. A man in a gray jacket, who knocked on the door of the house Jordan used to own at 9:14 in the morning, while Desiree was still getting ready for work. He handed her an envelope. He left. That was the whole transaction. Inside the envelope was a petition for divorce and a 14-page LLC financial disclosure that Desiree had not been expecting, because she had not known there was anything to expect. Claudette called Jordan on Thursday evening. She did not dramatize it. That was not her way. She simply told him what she had seen, in the order she had seen it, the way a person reports weather, factual, clear, with no interest in dressing it up. She had been at the house Tuesday, the day after Desiree had spoken to her attorney, the day after Desiree had read the full 14 pages twice and apparently started on a third pass. Claudette had come to drop off a dish she had borrowed 3 months ago and stayed because Desiree was sitting at the kitchen table with the disclosure open in front of her and a look on her face that Claudette had never seen before. Not anger, not grief. Something closer to the expression a person makes when they reach for a step that isn't there. She kept saying she knew about the LLC, Claudette told Jordan. She kept saying she knew you and Victor had something going. Like saying it enough times was going to change what was on those pages. Jordan said nothing. He was at his kitchen table, the same inspection reports from Saturday still nearby, now annotated in the margins in his tight, careful handwriting. Her attorney told her she can't contest it, Claudette continued. Entity predates the marriage by a year. No joint accounts, no commingling, nothing she can grab onto. The attorney told her straight. There is no argument to make. Good attorney, Jordan said. The 5th property is what got her, Claudette said. The one in the Meridian corridor. Jordan was quiet. She didn't know about the development deal, Claudette said. She didn't know about any of it. The appreciation projections, the commercial anchors moving in, none of it. Her attorney flagged it as a material asset, and she just sat there. Claudette paused. I have known that woman her whole life. I have never seen her sit like that. Jordan could picture it. Desiree at the table she had picked out, in the kitchen he had maintained, looking at 14 pages that described a world she had decided wasn't worth paying attention to. A world that had kept growing without her. He let the image pass through him and set it down. She wants to talk to me, he said. It was not a question. She asked me to arrange something informal, Claudette said. Her words. Said you were both adults. Said it didn't have to be ugly. The line was quiet for a moment. What did you tell her? Jordan asked. Claudette made a sound, not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. The sound of a woman who had seen too much to be surprised by any of it. I told her she put your things in trash bags and threatened to call the police if you weren't off the property in 10 minutes. I told her she doesn't get to decide now that it doesn't have to be ugly. Jordan exhaled slowly through his nose. Thank you. I'm telling you anyway, Claudette said, because I told her I would. That's the deal. I say what's true, even when it's inconvenient. I know. So, he could hear her settle back in whatever chair she was sitting in, the small domestic sound of it. What do you want me to tell her? Jordan stood up from the table. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The grid of lights, the buildings he had helped design, the streets that ran in every direction toward things he had not yet built. He thought about a Thursday evening in October, a laptop bag, a set of keys, 3 seconds of text on a lit screen. He thought about a man who had spent 6 years being the floor someone else walked on, and what it had taken to remember that a floor could also be a foundation. He thought about Evelyn Park's office, and the document in the safe, and the 5th property in the Meridian corridor, and Victor's voice running numbers over the phone at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday night, like the numbers were the most exciting thing in the world, because they were. He thought about all of it, briefly and completely, the way an engineer thinks about a structure before signing off on it. Then he said 2 words. "Set it." "I'll call you with the day," Claudette said. "I'll be ready," Jordan said. He was. Claudette's house smelled like pot roast and old wood, and the particular warmth of a home that had been lived in honestly for a long time. Jordan parked at the curb at 6:05. He sat in the car for exactly those 5 minutes, engine off, hands loose in his lap. Through the front window, he could see the amber glow of the dining room light. 3 silhouettes already at the table. He picked up the 2 folders from the passenger seat. He got out of the car. The front walk was short, 6 steps from the gate to the porch. He had walked it 100 times over 6 years of Sundays and holidays, and the ordinary occasions that families manufacture just to be together. He had always liked this house. He had always liked Claudette. Those 2 things, at least, had been real. He knocked once. Claudette opened the door before the sound had finished. She looked at him the way she always looked at him, clear-eyed, direct, with the particular warmth of a woman who had decided a long time ago that he was worth seeing accurately. She stepped aside without a word and let him in. They were all at the table. Desiree sat at the far end, straight-backed, dressed the way she dressed for things she had decided to win. Her hands were folded on the table in front of her. Her jaw was set. She had her composed face on, the one Jordan had watched her put on before difficult meetings, before conversations she intended to control. Priya was to her left, 7.5 months pregnant now, smaller somehow despite it, like the weight of what she had done had compressed her inward. She did not look up when Jordan walked in. Their mother, Evelyn Caldwell, 63 years old, a woman who had raised 2 daughters with real love and genuine sacrifice, sat between them with her hands in her lap and her eyes on Jordan as he entered. Her expression was not hostile. It was tired in a way that went past one evening. Claudette took her seat at the near end of the table. Jordan set both folders on the table before he took off his coat. He draped the coat over the back of his chair. He sat down. He did not rush any of it. "Thank you all for being here," he said. His voice was even. Conversational, almost. "I'll keep this straightforward." He opened the first folder. He did not editorialize. He did not perform. He was an engineer presenting a structure. Every piece placed where it would bear the most weight. Every fact sequenced so the next one could stand on top of it. He started with the text message, the one he had seen on Priya's phone the night he was pushed out of his own home. He had written it out, word for word, from memory, the night he stayed at Victor's, and he read it aloud now the same way he had written it. Flat. Precise. Did you tell her it was him? Does she believe it? Their mother's chin dropped slightly. He moved to Brendan Holt. He laid out the LinkedIn printout, the same one Victor had pulled up at the restaurant, the same face Jordan had looked at for a long moment without saying much. He explained, in plain terms, that Brendan worked in Desiree's own marketing department, had worked there for over a year, had been in the same professional orbit as Desiree the entire time he was coaching Priya on where to point the accusation. Desiree's composure flickered, just once, just for a second. Then it was back. He moved to Claudette's screenshot. The printed text chain, dated the week before the confrontation in the living room. He did not read every line. He didn't need to. He placed the page on the table and let them look at it. Just point it somewhere else. He seems like the safe choice. She'll go with it. Their mother's hands had started to shake by then. She pressed them flat against the table as if that would still them. Priya had not looked up from the table once. Jordan placed the final document on top. Priya's signed, notarized statement. He did not read from it. He simply said what it was and where it lived. His attorney's safe. Available for deployment in proceedings if needed. He hoped it wouldn't be needed. He closed the first folder. He closed the second. Desiree spoke then. Her voice had the careful, measured quality of a woman trying to recover footing on a surface that kept tilting. She said she had believed Priya. She said she had panicked. She said she understood now that she had made a mistake, and that she knew, that the way she had handled that night was wrong. There was something almost genuine underneath it. Jordan believed she believed what she was saying. That was the thing about Desiree. She was never fully lying, even when she was never fully telling the truth either. He let her finish, every word. Then he said, "You put my things in trash bags. You told me you'd call the police if I wasn't gone in 10 minutes. You called me 84 times after that, and I didn't answer once." He paused. "That was me giving you the same consideration you gave me that night." The room was completely silent. Jordan stood. He picked up both folders. He looked at Claudette and said, "Thank you. For your table. For your honesty. For your decency." He meant all three things separately, and she knew it. He put on his coat. He did not say goodbye to Desiree. He did not say anything else to Priya. He did not linger. He walked to the front door, not the back, opened it, and stepped out into the cool evening air. The walk back to his car was 6 steps. He took them without hurrying. He got in, he started the engine. He pulled away from the curb and drove home. The divorce moved the way Jordan had always known it would. Not dramatically. Not with the kind of noise Desiree had always been so comfortable making. It moved the way real things move when the foundation is solid, steadily, and in one direction. Evelyn Park called Jordan on a Wednesday morning, 10 days after the Sunday dinner. "Their attorney is not contesting the LLC," she said. "The entity predates the marriage by 14 months. No commingling, no joint filings. There is nothing for them to grab onto." Jordan was at his desk at work. He had a set of load calculations open on his screen. He looked at them while Evelyn talked. Desiree would walk away with the joint savings account just under $19,000. She would take the equity she could document from the house. She would keep her car. These were not nothing. Desiree was not a woman who would be left with nothing, and Jordan had never wanted that. He had simply wanted what was his. He kept the LLC. All 5 properties, including the one under contract in the corridor he and Victor had identified 2 years ago, before anyone else was paying attention. He kept his pension untouched. And the divorce record, the official, legal, documented record, would reflect exactly what had happened. A husband who had been falsely accused. A husband who had documentation proving it. He thanked Evelyn. He hung up. He went back to his calculations. Brendan Holt came apart the way men like him always do. Not in one clean break, but in a series of small collapses that accelerated once the first one started. Priya's attorney had initiated the paternity process within 2 weeks of the Sunday dinner. Brendan did not fight it. Fighting it would have required a public position, and Brendan had never been a man who could hold a public position under actual pressure. The legal establishment of paternity took 6 weeks. Child support was calculated on his income and was not a small number. The other woman, the one who had existed in parallel to Priya for most of the past year, found out the complete timeline through means that Brendan later could not fully reconstruct. She was gone before he had time to frame an explanation. Victor had one conversation. Just one. A mutual contact at Desiree's company Someone Victor had known through the professional circuit for years asked Victor over lunch how Jordan was doing given everything. Victor told him, factually, without performance or embellishment. He simply told the man what Brendan had done, what he had specifically, deliberately coached Priya to do, in writing, to a man who had never once done anything to deserve it. In small professional circles, one honest conversation is sufficient. Brendan left the company within 2 months. The circumstances of his departure were not formally recorded as anything dramatic. He simply became the kind of person that a department finds reasons to move away from. He landed somewhere smaller, at a lower rate, with child support obligations that made the difference in pay feel like a cliff edge every single month. Jordan was not responsible for any of that. He had not made a single call, sent a single email, or said a single word to anyone at that company. He did not need to. The truth, once it stopped being contained, traveled on its own. Priya named her son Marcus. He was born healthy, 7 pounds 4 ounces, on a Tuesday in November. Claudette was in the waiting room. Desiree was not. The safety net Priya had burned her family to protect was gone before the baby arrived. Brendan sent money when the court required it, and silence in between. He did not come to the hospital. He did not call. The man she had handed her family's integrity to in exchange for his protection had completed his transaction and closed the account. Claudette brought groceries. She sat with Marcus so Priya could sleep. She did not offer absolution, and she did not pretend the situation was anything other than exactly what it was. The direct consequence of a choice Priya had made, with full knowledge that someone innocent would absorb the damage. Claudette loved her without softening a single edge of that truth, and Priya, exhausted and stripped of every defense she had ever built, had no choice but to sit inside it. Desiree came once. Claudette was not in the apartment when it happened, but Priya told her afterward, and Claudette told Jordan in a single sentence the following Sunday over pot roast going warm on the stove. Desiree said everything she should have said to Brendan. Claudette said it to Priya's face, and Priya had no answer for any of it. Jordan nodded. He did not ask for more. He did not need it. The sisters still shared a mother. They still shared a history. They would share a table at Christmas because their mother would require it, and they both loved her enough to comply. But the thing that had existed between them, the deep, unquestioned trust that had made Desiree believe a lie without asking a single question, was gone. Not damaged, not strained. Gone in the permanent way that trust goes when it has been used as a weapon. Desiree signed the final settlement documents on a Thursday afternoon in Evelyn Park's conference room, across the table from an attorney who was not Jordan, and a stack of papers that reflected, in legal language, precisely what had occurred. She signed every page. She initialed every line. She did not call Jordan again. 14 months. That was the distance between the man who walked out his own back door carrying a laptop bag and a text message he hadn't shown to anyone, and the man standing on this rooftop right now, watching the city go amber in the last hour of daylight. Jordan had his hands in his jacket pockets. The wind off the city was cool and steady. Below him, the neighborhood spread out in every direction. The streets he and Victor had walked 2 years ago, pointing at buildings, running numbers in their heads, seeing something that nobody else had bothered to look for yet. 7th property. Cash flows positive from day one if we come in at or below asking, Victor said. He was looking at his phone, scrolling through the analysis they'd pulled that morning. Day one, Jordan. That doesn't happen. It happens when you pick right, Jordan said. Victor smiled without looking up. Then we keep picking right. The 2 flat below him was his, not theirs, not the bank's, not in any way that mattered. His. He had converted the top unit 14 months ago, moving out of the apartment and into a space he had rebuilt himself on weekends. New flooring, refinished cabinets, fixtures he had selected one at a time. The kind of work that takes longer when you do it correctly and lasts longer because of it. The bottom unit was rented to a retired schoolteacher named Evelyn, who paid on time, kept the back porch swept, and left a Christmas card in his mailbox every December. Her rent covered most of his mortgage. He had done that math 100 times when he and Victor first identified this corridor. He had run the numbers carefully, the way he ran everything, not hoping they would work, but determining whether they actually did. They did. They had always done. The fifth property had closed 6 weeks after the settlement was final. The commercial development that he and Victor had tracked for 2 years moved faster than even their most optimistic projection. Property values in the surrounding 6-block radius climbed in ways that local analysts wrote about in newsletters and podcasts with a confidence that would have been useful 18 months earlier. Jordan read one of those newsletters on a Sunday morning at Claudette's kitchen table and said nothing about it. And Claudette, who noticed everything, said nothing either. Some satisfactions do not need to be spoken out loud. Claudette's table was a standing thing now. Every Sunday, she made pot roast or chicken or a full spread of sides that was obviously too much for 2 people. And when Jordan mentioned this, she would say something about not wanting leftovers to go to waste, which they both understood was a fiction she was committed to maintaining. He brought dessert. He stayed until 10. They argued about nothing important, which news anchor was insufferable, whether the city's new bike lanes were a good idea, and agreed about most of the things that mattered. She had lost something in all of this too. He knew that. The fracture between Desiree and Priya had quieted over time into something that functioned, barely, at holiday tables and birthday calls. But it was not what it had been, and it would not be again. And Claudette held that grief with the same honesty she applied to everything else, without pretending it didn't weigh something, and without placing it anywhere it didn't belong. She had never once told Jordan he should feel guilty for any of it. He was grateful she was not the type to lie to him. Dana had texted him that afternoon. "Still on for Friday? I found a place you'll actually like." He had texted back, "I'll believe it when I see it." And then, after a moment, yes, she was a landscape architect who thought in terms of systems the way he did. How water moves through a space, where the ground shifts, what a structure needs beneath it before anyone sees what grows on top. She asked questions and then waited for the full answer, without interrupting, without filling the silence to make herself more comfortable. She had never once needed him to fold himself smaller so she could take up more room. He was not rushing anything. He was not afraid of anything. He was holding it the same way he held everything that mattered, carefully and with both hands. The light was going now, the amber deepening toward something darker at the edges of the skyline. Victor had moved from the 7th property to an 8th he claimed he wasn't seriously considering, which meant he was seriously considering it. And Jordan was half listening, half watching the last of the day press itself flat against the tops of buildings he knew by name. He thought about the man who had stood in his own kitchen on a Tuesday morning, reviewing blueprints with cold coffee beside him, filing things away in a quiet internal drawer he had been filling for months without knowing what it was he was saving for. He thought about the back door. He thought about 3 seconds and a lit phone screen and a sentence that became the foundation of everything that came after it. Victor said, "So what do you think about the numbers on the 7th? Jordan turned away from the skyline. He looked at Victor's phone, at the columns of figures waiting there, clean and real and entirely his. "Show me the comps again," he said. "I hope you enjoyed that one. Be sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next story. I've picked out 2 more for you that I think you'll really like.